Rosie and Bill Show wish to thank our primary sponsors. The Malin Agency, located in Springfield, PA, where they take pride in exceeding expectations every time. Anthony DeCecco and our friends at Tennis Addiction are ready to serve all your tennis needs at their beautiful facility in Exton, PA. Welcome everyone to the Rosie and Bill Show. If you're watching on Facebook, be sure to follow us, and if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. Folks, we are really excited about our guest tonight. His musical journey started at a very young age, and he would eventually make his way from behind the drum kit to playing guitar. And then he would add singer and songwriter to his wide range of musical talents. Please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show a man who says he's going to rock until he drops, Dallas Toler-Wade. Dallas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you, Dallas, because I'll tell you, Bill and I were talking about this. We haven't really had anyone in your genre of music, so we're going to let our guests in on the secret. You are a death metal, face-melting, guitar-shredding musician and singer. So we've kind of dressed up in your honor, like we want to come to your concert tonight.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wish there was a concert we were at tonight. That'd be great.
Us too. Well, listen, we're going to take it back a little bit. I want to know, how did you go from a young boy, okay, sitting behind the drum kit? How did you start playing the drums? Take us through the journey from there to then transitioning into guitar and going into death metal.
Okay. Well, I came from a fairly musical family, so instruments, pianos, guitars, and stuff, they were just kind of around. And so I used to hang out with my grandfather, and he would play a little bit. And I learned a little bit of guitar from him very, very early, but I didn't take it too seriously. It wasn't until I started hanging out with one of my cousins who had had like a rock band in the 80s and stuff, and they were rehearsing, and the drummer let me sit behind the drum set, and I instantly just started trying to make up beats or try to figure out how to do this. And that led from playing on that to pots and pans, and then getting a small drum set of my own. And then I was pretty heavy into it, I'd say, for about 5 years, from I'd say maybe 8 years old, pretty much up to about 13. And, I was playing along with records, anything from Rush to Black Sabbath, a little bit of Ozzy, I believe, or I would just sit there and play stuff or whatever. And it just kind of progressed, then I get into, high school or whatever. And this guy that's, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 years old, who plays guitar. And he was turning me on to some of these metal bands. And one of the first bands he turned me on to was a band called Metal Church. And I was just like instantly enamored with the guitar work. And I was always, dancing around and air guitaring to stuff anyways. And but it was hearing that and hanging out with him and watching him actually play some of this stuff that kind of, and I saw him make a power chord, and that was it. I was like, oh, that's how they do that. And then, well, there it is. And then the next 3 years is pretty much all I did was play guitar. And I actually traded and installed a car radio, I believe, for my first guitar. And and it was, I didn't know much about guitar. It played terrible, and I broke strings. I didn't know what I was doing. And then finally, about a year later, I got something a little bit nicer. And I just kept doing it. I'd say about a year and a half into playing, I did take a few lessons. I was just interested in how these guys were playing these leads and fast stuff, and I took a music theory course in high school. And that kind of was an eye-opener as well. Because I'd say the first year or so, I didn't really play anything but rhythm guitar. And I was still kind of wanting to be a drummer in a band one day. But the more I kept playing the guitar, the more the drums just collected dust. And then move on. Let's fast forward to like 16 years old. I'm playing in my first band, doing some covers, covering a little bit of anything from like Sanctuary, a little bit of Priest, Metallica, all the usual suspects. We played a couple Slayer songs, a little bit of Metal Church for fun, and it was just one of them things. And we stayed active as a band for probably about 3 years, I think, and then I started jamming with some other guys that were doing more of their own music, and I was in that band for about a year, and then formed another band, and then it was a few different bands, and then finally the scene had kind of dried up musician wise and places to play wise, so I moved from Fayetteville, North Carolina down to Greenville, South Carolina, and joined a band called Nile, and this was in '97, and was in that band for till 2016, so almost 20 years with the band. And we wrote, recorded, and toured all over the world like crazy. And 2016, I decided to depart the band. I already had this kind of going, the Narcotic Wasteland thing going as a side project. And once I decided to depart Nile, then I just kind of put all my efforts into this. And yeah, here we are,
Let me go back to when you were, starting to really jive with the guitar. Did you practice at your house? Where did you guys rehearse your band?
My first band, we were practiced in my bedroom, and actually there was two rooms beside each other. We actually got permission to remove one of the walls and soundproofed it up, and as long as we didn't play too late, nobody really cared.
Okay, I was wondering about that because I remember my brother's band used to practice in our basement, and my dad would come home from work, and he was a good sport about it. He was supportive, but after a while, he was like, "Turn it down,"
Yeah.
And I wondered how your family sounds like they were very supportive, though. I wondered how that went for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we in my family, we all have. My dad played bass. My mom played in high school band. I'm pretty sure her sister and plays piano. My cousin, which is my cousin, he played bass and played in rock bands. And some of them also acted in theater and stuff like that as well. So it's just kind of in the blood.
Definitely.
Dallas, when did the singing come along? Because you kind of talked about the drums and the guitar, but somewhere along the line you started doing some vocals too. When did that come into play?
That came into play in my first band, and that was out of necessity. We could never find anybody, and if I was like, at the time, this was back in the '80s, so. Mm-hmm. I was actually hitting some high notes and some falsetto, like and all that stuff.
And I remember it well.
Yeah, we used to cover a song called "Battle Angels" from Sanctuary. Check the song out. He hits a high F sharp in there. There's no way in hell I could do that now. But we just could never find anybody that was even as good, and I wasn't great, trust me. So, and then getting back into something, I think before we started, we were talking a little bit before the interview, we're talking about the relationship between like heavy metal and like classical music and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So the notation on the guitars, especially as I started to write more of my own stuff, the guitar started kind of taking the melody of the song, and the voice ended up being something a little bit more aggressive and angstier, I guess you could say. And it was right there when all the kind of death metal things started to happen too. Like everybody was kind of feeling it, where, when it came to the music and the notes, the guitars and the drums were kind of pushed more a little bit to the forefront, and the vocals were definitely there and commanding, but it was from a different emotional source, if you will. It was a little bit more stripped down to the bone and more just raw aggression.
Let
And
me talk to you about that, Dallas, because you used the word now aggression twice, because I was wondering, is like what draws people, even you, to that type of music, because there is a lot of aggression. Do you think it's like a healthy way for people to express that part of themselves?
I think it is. You feel a lot better, even if you're whatever it is you're into, because not everybody's into, you know, angry music or sad music or both or happy music. So whatever it is that that kind of frees your mind from the sort of round of existence going on around us and gives us a little bit of a pause and where we can decompress and just I don't know, crack open a brewski and crank up the tunes, that kind of thing. Everybody kind of needs that decompression time every now and then. And music and movies and entertainment has always been that thing, that provides that. And I think it's really just based on the individual. Me personally, I've always loved really dark and heavy sounding musical scores for movies and stuff like that. And actually, I'm wearing this Creep Show shirt. There's a lot of cool stuff in the horror movies as well, but those kind of influences can. But as far as the overall aggression, that's kind of the thing that it's therapeutic for me. Because life can be frustrating sometimes.
Sure.
And and it's you have to have it. It's nice to listen to some stuff that's more laid back, but every now and then you just need a little more.
I understand. Do you feel metal gets a bad rap?
I don't know. I don't know if it's as bad as it was, back in the 80s when, they all thought, people were saying we were devil worshippers, and you had the PMRC, and, that's why we have like explicit lyrics stickers on. But I think in a way we're kind of past all that. I don't think that it's as volatile as it was as far as just judgment and pointing fingers, because you got to think about it. I mean, most of the people that were raising hell back then, they're like, in their 50s now. So, and, own businesses or whatever that is they're doing, or playing a band, or, what I'm saying? We've all grown up now, but,
Dallas, there's two other aspects of that I just wanted to bring up, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I think there's another aspect of your music that I know Rosie and I really appreciate, and that is just your musicianship and the way you move up and down. You own the fretboard when you're playing, and the fact that you can play and sing. Like, I used to play drums and I tried to sing. I tried to be Don Henley. It's tough. And then you're talking earlier about doing, a Rush when you were a young kid. I was kind of jealous, by the way, when you said that earlier, because I still can't play Neil Peart. But that aside, watching you just play, just seamlessly move up and down, I just hope more people can appreciate the musicianship. And like, how long and how much effort did it take to get to that point where you're at?
Well, the cool thing about guitar or any instrument is, as long as you pick it up and you practice, there's always going to be new stuff that you can discover or find. I've found, personally for me, I like to remain a practicing musician, even if I'm not like actively writing or anything. It's good to, sometimes it's like working out. Sometimes it can be repetitive to practice scales, or for the most part, I do that kind of thing for the health of my hands. But really, the end of the day, any guitar player is going to tell you, if anybody asked, like, how did you get there with that? Practice. That's it. Mm-hmm. Just like, especially like the first 5 years that I played guitar, it was like all I did. Well, maybe some occasional late nights with some Nintendo, but for the most part, I played guitar. And, I would read stuff late at night, whether it be a comic book or a horror book or whatever, But yeah, I spent most of my time doing that. And I still try to, we've been very busy touring this year. So I have been taking a little bit of a break. But we got some shows and stuff coming up soon. So I'm going to be practicing. But yeah, it's really in the discipline and, but also, conditioning yourself and warming up and not hurting yourself. Because in this kind of music, it's really easy to sustain injuries. Drummers do it all the time. Their feet are moving so fast. They're like running a marathon back there.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's insane. And yeah, so yeah, things like carpal tunnel and tarsal tunnel and tendonitis and all that. That's very real. And it can definitely, so I've been absolutely terrified of that. When I was 14 years old, my cousin played in a band, and the guitar player in that band actually had to put his guitar down for a year. The doctor told him, he said, if you keep this up, you might not ever play again.
Wow.
So yeah, you just have to, it can be a repetitive motion, but there's a few exercises you can do. And like I say, especially if you're in some really technical, intense stuff, you kind of want to warm up slowly like an old Buick. You know what I mean?
Well, I wanted to go back to you were saying you're going to be touring, and that's with Narcotic Wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2014, I think it's about the time, that's when you kind of started doing that band as a side gig, but then it really took over. What has that experience been like for you? And is it very different from Nile?
Yeah, I would say it's different from Nile, in a lot of aspects. I mean, if you listen to some of the stuff that I did with Nile, you may hear some similarities in there just because it's me. Right. But yeah, I mean, for me, Narcotics is a little bit more on the old school thrashy side of things, and the guitars are tuned a little bit more normally, which I prefer. I've always preferred a guitar not to be tuned way down unless it's got extra strings on it. Then it seems to be makes sense. But so there's the tuning aspects. There is the it's I'm not trying to be the fastest or the most technically proficient in the world or anything like that. It's really just stuff that feels good. It feels right. You know what I mean? And that's kind of been the thing with this. But yeah, when I started writing songs for Narcotic Wasteland, I guess it was probably around 2012, but it took a while to find other guys. Well, particularly finding a drummer. And then we found Eric Schultek. But Ed Rohn, the lead guitar player, he's been a friend of mine since we played in bands since we were teenagers. And so we had always talked about doing a project together again. And then we, another friend of ours from our hometown, Chris Dupree, he stepped up to the plate and delivered some great bass and vocals and all that. And it was kind of a thing. And then, I departed Nile in 2016, and then I had like another album brewing for Narcotic Wasteland and put that out in October of 2017. And we went out on our first tour. And yeah, the experience it's definitely different, but the same at the same time, because life on the road is life on the road. When you get out there, and I don't know, it's the calm before the storm. It's like before they open the doors at the club or whatever, like everything's set and ready to go, and just kind of chilling out, and you're just like, yep, I've done this before.
But is there that really cool anticipation though?
Always. And just the overall adrenaline from it. I think the adrenaline from, because touring can be tough. You don't get adequate sleep sometimes, and or you're flying around everywhere in planes, you're lagged out, and but still, as soon as you walk up there, you've got all the energy you need. And I think rock and roll, if you take care of yourself, I think rock and roll can keep a person pretty young. And I think it's the adrenaline from either attending a show or performing a show. It just, I don't know, it just heightens us, and it keeps our minds and bodies young.
But how do you pick the names? How did you come up with the name of that band?
Well, I had written a song, and it was talking about some of the instances that I had like experienced or seen or going on around me. Because a lot of the lyrics are from an observationist sort of thing, and I wrote a song called "Widespread Narcotic Wasteland," and it just kind of grew from there. And then we just chopped off the widespread part, and it was just Narcotic Wasteland. And then more songs came: "Absent Friends," "Keeping Up with the Jones." It was a little cheeky at first with some plays on words, instead of "Keeping Up with the Joneses," that kind of thing. And so we weren't especially at first. And I don't think that we're still. I mean, we talk about some serious matters, and I've even had some fans, send me messages and be like, "Man, that thing you said in that song really helped me get through my addiction problem," stuff like that. So that was, that just gives me chills just right now. I mean, that's such a wonderful compliment. I never thought in a million years I would hear someone say that to me.
Yeah, that is amazing, I would think, because in your particular case, those are your words. You wrote them, you're singing them, and for that message to get out and to get that feedback as you're sharing that, Dallas, I can't think of anything more gratifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, of course, you're going to have your internet trolls and stuff like that. That goes with anything. But in one of the funny comments, because see, my skin is pretty thick, and I don't really have a really high opinion of their opinion, anyways. So, but it's one of the things. Somebody thought that we were like a 100% straight edge band, and we're say no to drugs, kids, and stuff like that. And somebody called me McGruff the crime dog. I still laugh at that. I fell out of my damn chair. I was just like, what? And it's like, oh, come on. I mean, anybody who's hung out with me has seen me have a beer or two. I was like, it's not like that. But yeah, I mean, all of this stuff is serious topics, but on the other side, you get all these wonderful compliments. And
is there anything that is still on the to-do list for you? I mean, obviously you want to keep performing, but I mean, is there something that you haven't done that is like, yeah, I'm still gonna make that happen?
I was kind of thinking about that too, and man, I mean, I'm sure you guys can relate. Those to-do lists, they can get pretty deep, pretty long. And I was driving today back from the grocery store, and I was thinking about the old days, just like we were talking about, back when there was like singing. And that's one thing that's on the to-do list. I would like to do, at least if it was just one song, I would like to do a song with actual vocals. And I think that would be a challenge. I'm always trying to challenge myself. So that would be a challenge, especially if I had to sing it and play it at the same time.
Is that difficult to sing and play at the same? I know B.B. King didn't play while he sang.
Oh, wow. Yes, it can be. It definitely can be. I've been doing it a really long time. I've been singing and playing almost as long as I've been playing, just for fun. And like I said, the guitar parts, they start getting more complicated over the years, and things started getting kind of crazy. And yeah, you really just kind of have to break it down, the coordination of it. But now I've been doing it so long, it's not as difficult. I can kind of there's a song that we wrote, one of our latest singles, called "The Best Times Have Passed." The first time we played it live, I did all right, and I'd never really, the first time I actually tried to sing and play it. It is one of the easier songs, but 20 years ago, I'd have been like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But lots of time doing it. The Nile years, that's some pretty difficult guitar parts as well. and some very erratic and sporadic vocal patterns and stuff like that. So, and when you're writing all this stuff, or when you're recording it, you're not necessarily thinking about having to do it later. So you up the bar on yourself. You know what I mean? And then you got to go do it.
You said you're someone that always wants to keep learning and growing. And so it sounds like the perfect project for you, the perfect next undertaking. So we look forward to seeing how that comes out and how you do. And I'm sure it'll be great. So thank you so much for coming on the show with us. We wish you all the best in your touring. And we look forward to seeing what's next. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show, and we'll see you next week.
This week's episode has been brought to you by Doherty & Company Insurance Services for all your business and personal insurance needs. Our friends at Tennis Addiction in Exton, PA. And the Malin Agency, where exceeding expectations is how they do business. Interested in becoming a partner in positivity? Send us an email, Rosie and Bill Show 2018 @gmail.com.